Uh, no social media, no internet, no phones, nothing. So the only thing is to deliver this message is for you to travel. So that has to be taken into consideration. One. Second is the formula is very simple. It's simple, but easier said than done. It's easy to explain, but of course it's not easy to implement. Now, the formula is basically you have, it's a few steps together. One is your prime responsibility is to represent Islam in the best possible way. And without this, nothing else will work. Now, if you want to do da'wah, which we have to, our first responsibility is to be good ambassadors of Islam. Very good representative. And that means you work on yourself to develop yourself into a role model, right? Because if you talk about Islam and you are not a role model, you're probably going to cause more harm than good. You're probably going to cause a damage. I mean, people will be laughing. People will be saying, what are you talking about? You're talking about honesty and you're cheating. You're talking about peace and all kinds of terrorism is committed in the name of Islam. It becomes bad. It becomes, so you can still do it. You can print the brochures and you can ask your friend and come, I want to talk to you about this, but it's not going to help. Especially that, unfortunately, our situation now, we have a big liability coming from the Muslim world, that the Muslim world is in the worst conditions you can think of. So the first thing that comes to mind to anybody you want to make da'wah to, say, if Islam is so great, why Muslims are in this condition? So that's already a problem, already a handicap, already an obstacle. If with that, we don't provide you as a person, as a role model, then the rest will, you don't need to worry about the rest that I'm going to be saying. So that's the first thing. The second thing that is required for successful da'wah is compassion and social interaction. There is no da'wah from isolation. If you are someone who is isolated, that will create some suspicion in your neighbors and the minds of your neighbors and your colleagues. Why? What is he hiding? Why is he avoiding people? Why? And that will kill any da'wah effort that you're gonna make. So reaching out, being open, building relationship. That's why I say everybody who wanna be doing da'wah should be in the business of building relationship, because da'wah is relationships. Without relationship, there is no da'wah. So one is role model, two, outreach, opening, interacting with people, and interacting with people as a human being, with all the respect and the compassion, not as a customer for your religion, like I'm going to convert this person. I need to convert. No, that should not be the driving force. Even when, if you want to deliver the message in the best possible way to the person, it's out of compassion, because you know Islam so well, you know that this is the best for people in this life and in thereafter. You want to share it with people around you out of love and compassion, not out of arrogance that you are kafir, I'm believer, and I want to teach you, or I want to save you, or that's not going to be, nobody's going to listen to that. So the da'wah thing looks tricky, but it is very simple because it can be done very naturally. If we were not confused with many versions of Islam that we received, traditional, rigid, Bedouin, outdated, irrelevant, you name it. If we were not confused, but that's the nature of a human being, is to love your country, to love your people, to be in good term with your neighbor, to be good neighbors, to have good relationship with your colleagues. That's a natural thing. I mean, if you did not have this idea of dichotomy and dividing the world into believers and non-believers, believers and kafir, and wala and bara, and you should not talk to them, and you should not be friendly, and it's all of this nonsense, ridiculous things. If it was not for this confusion, the natural thing is to be open and to be, but you add an element that because you represent an Islam, represent a religion, represent a community, you have a message to deliver, you have an extra responsibility to be exemplary in your behavior more than others. So yeah, you don't even go to the gray area. You try to excel in everything you do. Why? Because you're representing Islam, you have a message to deliver. People will make their impression about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on your behavior, etc. Other than that, the rest is natural. People usually, they respect each other. They don't hate each other. All of this hatred and all of this is nonsense. All of this is against the human nature. So just be yourself, interact with people. So good role model, compassion and love, and interacting with people, and as a human being, and as fellow citizen, as neighbors, as colleagues. And you need to forget about this dichotomy that I'm us versus them. We are Muslim, and this person is non-Muslim. No, this person is a human, is your fellow human, which means your brother in humanity, because humanity is one family, and that's what Quran keeps reminding us. He is your fellow citizens. You are on the same boat. Whatever happens in the country or in the city or in the county or in the state or the neighborhood is gonna affect you. Both, you have a lot of things in common. And then he is your neighbor or your colleague, etc. And then all the commonalities. And then there is something called, they chose a different religion, or that's they embrace different religion. And that's fine. That's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is your job? Your job is represent Islam in the best possible way and try to seize any opportunity that comes. If you are interacting, that opportunity will come to deliver the message. And if that opportunity does not come, you may have to create it. I mean, if worse comes to worse, like somebody is dying, like the cases you mentioned, or that opportunity did not come, etc., you probably can say, my friend, I need to see you. I just have something that I need to share with you. And then you deliver that message, of course, in the best possible way. You have to be articulate. You have to be saying, I, Muslim, this is not a different religion. That's the same religion that was revealed to all prophets. This is the last edition or version. And this is for everybody. This is not for Arabs or for Middle East and etc. And has nothing to do with some ridiculous things that are committed in the name of Islam. And I invite you not to embrace it. I invite you to learn it. I invite you to learn it. It's basically, it's like mailman or mail person. You just deliver the message. And then if the person gets curious and start asking questions, you keep explaining. You want to reach a point where this person, from your behavior and from your interaction, muamala, and from delivering that message, will get a very good idea about what this religion is, and that it's for him, like for you, etc. And that's it. Your job ends there. What do they decide to do with it? They may say, okay, I'm not interested. Please don't talk to me about this anymore. Let's keep our friendship or as good neighbors, etc. Fine. Your relationship with that person should not be affected by that decision. And that's what we have been missing. When we put ourselves as judges, and when we had this idea of dividing the world into two camps, and when we get all this confusion of allegiance and wala and bara, and you should hate and you should do this and that, we really messed it up completely. So all this da'wah thing has collapsed today because of those crazy ideas, because we don't have role models, because Muslims do not know their religion. And if you cannot give that which you don't have, how can you deliver a message that you yourself, either you're not a good example for it, or you don't represent it in the best possible way? So in the future, especially if you have a case of someone who is like dying, make sure to do that. I mean, make sure to discharge your duty, and saying that, but do it in the right way with the right dose, out of compassion, not just, of course, not that just discharging your duty, saying, okay, I just have to say this, I'm going to say it. And no, you say it in the best possible way, in a most articulate way, in the most compassionate way. And then that's it. After that, it all depends on the response. Somebody becomes more interested. Yes, I need to learn more. Do you have material? Can you arrange for me to meet with somebody to tell me more, etc.? I have some questions. That's one track. You keep with that person, or please, let's not talk about this anymore. It's fine. You have done your job. But I think we need to make sure that in the future, we all have this problem and we all have these thoughts, but we need to do our best to make sure that at least nobody dies without us doing that part.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Sheikh.
Even if you put it in writing and you put it like in an envelope and in a letter and deliver it. I mean, if worse comes to worse, I mean, of course, everybody is different, every case is different, but even if it comes to that, let's put it in the form of a letter and say, I want to give you this, please read it and tell me what you think, or tell me your thoughts. If there are no more questions, we can proceed. Of course, always priorities for questions. Now, today we're starting a new surah. Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead.
I wanted to know, how do we explain about Sidna Maryam to people of other faiths, especially like Christians? They are interested a lot of time to know, like, tell us about Maryam and Isa. Maybe what is the important message to share about her? Again, I know you speak about this, but I need more clarity.
That's a very good question also. I really want us to think differently. We should never think about what we should say to people. We should always think about, I need to learn, because when you learn, then you can explain. But just trying to learn for that purpose is not a good idea. So, like, for example, myself, I have limited knowledge about Maryam, for example, just the example that you mentioned, or Jesus. I shouldn't go and say, I just need to know what to tell people about. No. I should say, okay, I think I need to educate myself about this. I need to know, I need to get to the bottom of it. Take it like a research project. I mean, research project sounds big or daunting. No, it's not. Research project means basically, it may take a day, it may take a few hours, it may take a few days, a week, etc. Just reading, searching. Alhamdulillah, nowadays the internet is overwhelmed. The material on the internet is amazing. This YouTube thing, documentaries, pages, etc. There are books now online, so many books that are available even in PDF format. Recently, the Library of Congress did that and made so many books available. So we have really no excuse. But I think we always think in terms of not what to say, but I need to educate myself so that I fill my tank or my cup, and then it will spill out or will deliver easily, because now I know it. And that's even what I tell students in class, say, you try always focus on learning, not on grades, and focus on learning so that you can explain something. Learning material to the point that you can explain it, mastering it. That's something that the touch that we missed in Islam as Muslims is, it's not about, because we were at certain point in time, we were driven to focus more on quantity. How much Quran memorize, how many hadith I memorize, how much fiqh I know, etc. We lost the quality. We lost that there are some key concepts in Islam or key words or key things that you just need to master. And when you want to learn something, do make some effort to master it, not just superficially. Nowadays, if you talk to Muslim, yeah, I think there is a hadith that says this. I think there is I think it's always superficial, always shallow. Why? Because unfortunately, we are yet to break that bad habits of not reading. And we are yet to be the Muslim that we are supposed to be, which is people who are addicted readers and thirsty for knowledge and for wisdom, as Rasul described it. Al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min. That wisdom is the lost property of a believer, that it's something that you are always looking for. That's what we need to gain. And so that when something like this comes to your mind, Maryam, for example, anything, let me go and start search and ask and collect information. And let's not keep thinking about shortcuts. Like, for example, I need quick answer to this. No, there is no such thing. Let me take it as a project or as a task. I'm going to work on it. Why? Because I'm surrounded by some fellow Christians, and that issue is coming up or might come up. And it's embarrassing for me not to know it. So let me learn. Let me learn, educate myself, be prepared. And that's, I say always, that's how knowledge increases. If you are in the business of interacting with people and really doing da'wah as the way I explained it early, you will be forced to learn. Why? Because in those interactions and discussion, questions will come up. And when questions come up, there's nothing wrong to say that I don't know or I'm not sure about. But that's for you, new homework. I'm gonna go and learn so that next time when this question comes up, I'm ready to answer it. And so on and so forth. So it becomes like snowball. Keep growing, growing, growing. How? By curiosity. Anytime you are in a halaqah like this, you're watching something, you're talking to somebody, you're reading something, and there is some word that comes up or some question or some issue or subject, it doesn't have to be even religious, by the way. This curiosity does not have to be limited only to Islam. There is, let me go and search about it so that I can, I educate myself. Unless we develop that sense of curiosity. And as Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu says, لا بورك لي في يوم لا أزداد فيه علما. يعني, he considered a day that he does not increase his knowledge, it's like a lost, wasted, or cursed even. بورك لي في يوم, and then the بورك لي في يوم لا أزداد فيه قربا من الله. That every day I should learn something new. And that's the touch that we need to regain. The touch of not be happy with yourself if a day passes by and the evening comes and the night and you are the same person like yesterday. You learn nothing new. You did not improve in any way or shape.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Anushi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I have been gone. I was on travel for the last few weeks, but it's good to be back, alhamdulillah, and rejoin the lectures. I went overseas, Dr. Anushi, and just want to share a quick story. I was with a taxi driver in Amman, and we were looking for a certain place, and the map showed it as a different name for the street. And then he said, oh no, the name of the street is Al-Hurriya, Shara Al-Hurriya, which is Freedom Road. So I stayed quiet, and I was like, then I asked him, are there streets in the Middle East, Arab world, or maybe Muslim world that are called, justice or mercy or equality? So he laughed, and he said, no, there isn't. There isn't in Amman. Yeah, there's no street called justice or mercy or excellence, which are the principles of Islam. But yet, they keep trying to promote freedom. So he said to me, and then, he laughed. He said, if there was a street called Justice in Jordan, I wouldn't be in my 40s working on a taxi that does not belong to me, and trying, to make struggling to make ends meet. So then I thought, maybe there's a reason why, we do not name certain places, give the names, specifically, using the principles of Islam, justice, mercy, excellence, because maybe if they are repeated in the minds of Muslims or the people, maybe it'll strike thoughts in their mind. So I just wanted to share that with you and the group.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, these things, for a long time, for centuries, the essence of Islam was by design, was made to fade and to be marginalized. And then the superficial things were blown out of proportion, were promoted. And that was all for a reason. Just to end up in this situation. Since the times of dynasties, which means the Umayyad, centuries, it was by design, we took this route or this direction or this path that basically the justice, the tazkiyah, the islah, the amr bil ma'ruf and nahy al munkar, the change, the advocacy, standing up for justice, all of this has faded. Mission, the essence of mission, maqasid, the goals of Islam, etc., and even the tawheed. Even the tawheed, because the right tawheed, which is the right relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brings up a lot of motivation and a lot of inspiration and empowerment. Even that, they managed to make it very obsolete, turned into some rhetoric, basically qawalib, or very superficial thing. What is Tawheed? Tawheed is this 1, 2, 3, etc. No, Tawheed is a vibrant spiritual relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is characterized by so many aspects. At the heart of them is love to the point of worshiping, love to the point of seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at any price and whatever it takes. Even that has faded. So we left with very rigid, superficial, dull aqidah. And we are left with rituals that are also very obsolete and dull. People pray, they don't know why they're praying. And some people fast as part of the tradition and habit. So those rituals. And we had some fiqh that we inherited, some halal and haram. People, they practice that at different levels. But we ended up with something very, very strange. Really has little to do with the original Islam. When you take a piece of art, beautiful piece of art, And then you break it, and then you try to reassemble it by pick and choose. And then some items become blown out of proportion, some other items will be neglected, etc. You end up with something that is mutilated, something that is something else. I mean, the Islam that we subscribe to today and the Islam of the companions, they have very little in common. It's only on the surface they look similar because we pray the same way and do it. But on paper, they look similar. But the result, the kind of individuals, the kind of community that Islam has produced, and this Islam is producing, there is no comparison. It's not even something that is close, so there is no comparison between the two versions, all the versions that are there here now, and the original one.
Jazakallah khair.
All right, so let's get started with Surah Al-Ma'idah. Again, I don't know how to say it, but wallahi, we have an amazing book, brothers and sisters. I don't know why we are not really enjoying it. So inspiring, so, I mean, it can really change your life on daily basis and make you a better person every day. And it's an amazing book. And we are unfortunately neglecting it. Every surah, every page, every verse is really give you strong injection of strength and clarity of vision and clarity of thinking and spiritual strength and you name it. Subhanallah, yani. And then you look at the surah, you look at the page, and then you look even at the verses and the words. They really, I mean, if we do this, if we have the proper relationship with the Quran, basically your heart will be fed and cleansed every time. It's like your body is fed by food and fed and cleansed by showers. That's what the Quran does to our hearts. It's we're missing a lot by not doing it, by not doing this. So we really have to fix this situation, because it's not acceptable that we continue with this neglect and abandoning Quran. Yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Ma'idah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu awfu bil-uqud. And one of those foundational verses, even it's not a verse, and it's a part of a verse. You who believe, fulfill your obligations. This is a verse that can change your life. Fulfill your obligations. What are these obligations? Anything that you committed yourself to. And the first obligation is your obligation toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the contract that you signed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, aqd. And based on that, all other obligations. And if you think about it, when Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam described in the hadith that your body has rights on you, your family has rights on you, etc., you end up that you are someone who is managing a number of obligations. Obligations toward Allah, obligation toward your body to keep it healthy, obligations at work, obligations as a neighbor, obligation as citizen, obligation as a spouse, as parents. It's just you're managing a bunch of obligations. And that goes from the individual to the community, to the country, to the international relation, everything. Any obligations has to be honored. Nowadays, believe it or not, Muslims, even the smallest obligation, they fail to honor it. Even when someone says, I'm gonna meet you at 2 o'clock, I don't know when they're gonna come. So it's as bad, that's how bad it got, to the point that words have no weight. Promises, even children don't believe the promises of their parents because of broken promises all the time. So make sure that بالعهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا. So وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم. Anytime you give your word, you promise, it's an obligation, and you just have to honor it. Being a citizen, that's a contract, that's an obligation. Why? Because you are signing. What citizenship is? People who come together and decide to live by that constitution and by the law, to live together. So respecting or abiding by the constitution and by the law is part of your obligations, because you are a citizen, and that means obligations. I just said it early, as a Muslim, you have the obligation to represent Islam in the best possible way. You tell me that's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. Yes, but that's something that you chose to do. I mean, وَإِنَّهُ لَذِكْرٌ لَكَ وَلِقَوْمِكَ وَسَوْفَ تُسْأَلُونَ. It's an honor, but it is a big responsibility. So, أوفوا بالعقود. And this is again in the typical approach of the Quran, where there is that wake-up call, so that you pay attention to what is coming. There are a lot of rules in Surah Al-Ma'idah. This halal, that's haram, you can do this, you cannot do that. Based on what? Based on, or you believe, honor your obligations. So Quran has this all the time. Starts a passage by wake-up call. It's like professor saying, can I get your attention? Or a speaker, can I get your attention? So that people will listen to you. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. Many passages in the Quran, they start with something like this. It's just for you to, so that you pay attention to what is coming. أُحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ بَهِيمَةُ الْأَنْعَامِ إِلَّا مَا يُتْلَى عَلَيْكُمْ غَيْرَ مُحِلِّي الصَّيْدِ وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمٌ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَحْكُمُ مَا يُرِيدُ. So some rules, and then also conclusion, or closing the verse with the same thing, with a very strong dose of Tawheed. So the rules are boxed, sandwiched between أوفوا بالعقود إن الله يحكم ما يريد. Livestock animals are lawful as food for you, with the exception of what is about to be announced. That basically confirm the idea that some people want to distort, which is everything in Islam is halal unless indicated otherwise, not the other way around. So those who say haram are those who have to prove. The burden of proof is on those who say haram. It's like everybody is innocent until proven otherwise. So أحلت لكم إلا ما يتلى عليكم. So the norm is things are lawful, but the exception, there are things that are made haram. We have version of Islam nowadays that turn this rule upside down, that everything is haram, and whoever says halal has to prove it, and to be on the safe side, just make it haram. And that's totally wrong. As we will see, this surah says لا تحلوا and says لا تحرموا. It's you are not allowed to take something that is unlawful and make it lawful, but also you're not allowed to take something that is lawful and make it unlawful. Because many Muslims nowadays, especially practicing Muslim, they accepted this idea that it is safer to say haram. You don't go wrong when you say haram. If you're not sure, just say haram. That's not true. It's exactly the same problem. When you take something that is halal, make it haram, it's as bad as taking something that is haram, making it halal. So, أحلت إلا ما يتلى عليكم غير محلي الصيد. You are forbidden to kill game while you are on pilgrimage. Allah commands what He will. So, يا أيها الذين آمنوا, just to remind you that You, as believer, you made a contract with Allah. So honor that contract. And because you want to honor that contract, this is what you need to do. These are the things that you need to do. Why? That confirms the idea that I was emphasizing in khutbah, especially recently, that the companions, they know that they signed on blank check or a contract, or they committed to the destination, which is Mardatullah wal Jannah, the good pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in heaven, whatever it takes at any price. Now we need guidance. Now we need directions. That's why they were eager to receive revelations. And that's why Quran has in many places say, yes, alunaka. These people, they keep asking. They want to know. They want to know what is lawful, what is not lawful. They want to know what are the expectations. They want to know how they can honor the contract that and the covenant they made with Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called ahd and mithaq. Ahd and mithaq. It's a covenant, it's a contract. Another thing that tells you also that this religion is very flexible and very practical and very accommodating to the social norm. This rule was there already. People, they don't, Shahr al-Hurum, al-Ashur al-Hurum, the 4 months that already the Arabs before Islam, they was taking them as sacred months. Rajab, Dhul-Qa'dah, Dhul-Hijjah, and Muharram. And of course they were playing games around them, but they were taking them as sacred months, and Islam comes and said, keep them, and kept them. So it's not true that if someone becomes a Muslim, they have to change everything in their culture, in their behavior, we have seen people here in this country and elsewhere, like European or African or others, they become Muslim, they trying to become like Saudi or Pakistani. You don't have to. These are just cultural items. The way people dress, the way people eat, the way people, that do not change. There are things that are religious. There are a lot of things that are cultural, and you can remain as an American or British or African or Asian or still, and you're good Muslim. You don't have to. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحلوا شعائر الله ولا الشهر الحرام ولا الهدي ولا القلائد ولا آمين البيت الحرام يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا. So again, honoring the sacred months. So you who believe, do not violate the sanctity of Allah's rights, the sacred month, the offerings, their garlands, nor those going on the sacred house to seek bounty and pleasure of their Lord. The 4 months, the 4 sacred months used to be months of complete peace in the Arabian Peninsula. With the exception of sometimes they try to play games, they used to be around them or work around them. Sometimes they extend, sometimes they shorten, just to find, to create some loopholes and work around the rules. But other than that, it used to be complete. And that's very consistent with the idea of Hajj. You're going to Hajj. The whole idea of Hajj is for you to not physically, but spiritually come out of this worldly life to the point that you leave everything behind. Job, house, family, relations, everything, business, etc. You travel. And then even when you travel, even the clothes, you keep only the minimum, the basic clothes. That's all of this is meant for you to have that complete dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the time of Hajj. It's like becoming like the angels who are worshiping all the time. It's the same way like we prepare for Salah. Like we're going to see later on how you make wudu and you get prepared. Why? So that you can try to achieve that khushu', because Salah is also the same thing. It's meant to be for you to leave this world for a few minutes, spiritually, not physically, and really be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, this is a challenge, but we have to keep trying, and we have to keep trying to reach the maximum level of concentration and khushu'ah. And we should never give up, and we should never allow our salah to come down to become routine physical tasks without our heart and mind present. Especially salah is really short. I mean, maybe hard to focus for a long time. I mean, Hajj, it's a number of days or weeks, and that's why it's done once in a lifetime. But salah is few minutes. It's the maintenance. It's meant to recharge your batteries quickly. That's why it's saying there is no even the hunting is not allowed during those days. And that applies not only to the pilgrims, even to those who are coming for business, because sometimes in the Hajj time in Mecca and Medina, not sometimes, a lot of time, there are people who are not making Hajj, but the rules apply to them. وَلَا آمِينَ الْبَيْتَ الْحَرَامِ يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ وَرِضْوَانًا. So including this rule of complete peace applies to everybody. I mean, there used to be tribes who are fighting each other all the time, or there is some revenge between families or tribes, and during Hajj and during those sacred months, everybody will restrain themselves. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن وإذا حللتم فاصطادوا. So the sanctity, nor those going to the sea to seek. But when you have completed the rites of pilgrimage, you may hunt. But when you have completed the rites of pilgrimage, you may hunt. So only during that time. This is very practical religion. This is a religion that even would ask you to restrain yourself from many lawful things during Hajj, and then they become lawful again. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا. This is also considered the foundational verse, because is asking Muslim to take the moral high ground, much high, very high, and do not let your hatred for the people who buried you from the sacred mosque induce you to break the law or to be unjust. This verse goes along with other verses. One of them in Surah An-Nisa, Surah 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ وَلَوْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوْ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ. It's verse 135. Surah 4, verse 135 goes with this verse from Surah Al-Ma'idah, and with the verse that is coming later, verse 8 in Surah Al-Ma'idah, كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. It's an amazing thing, yani. Asking you to be just. That's the minimum. For you to be just in all your interaction with all people. We always try to be fair, and ruling out and closing all the doors for bias. ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين أو الأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعدلوا. It's amazing. The verse in Surah Nisa, which we covered before, rules out and closes all doors of bias. Now, comes here and then also not only to be just, but also to stand for justice. Why? Because you are a community that is mission driven. It is a community that أخرجت للناس. It's a community that was sent to serve and to lead and to guide and to fulfill the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that requires you not only to be fair and just, but also to stand up for justice in all cases. And we have seen how Quran was revealed to exonerate a Jew in Medina who is from a tribe that was hostile to the Muslim community, but he was accused falsely by some important family or one of those prestigious family of Ansar or of Medina Muslims. And Quran was revealed to exonerate that person like it was revealed to exonerate Aisha radiallahu anha. And in very harsh language, addressing the Prophet. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَهَمَّتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْهُمْ أَنْ يُضِلُّوكَ. It's a very strong language that to say that there are no room for bias, there is no room for double standards. So stand up for justice for everybody. We don't see it nowadays, unfortunately. A lot of time you see in the mosque people talking about injustice inflicted on Muslims somewhere. That's good. But then when there is injustice inflicted to others, usually we don't even hear about it. That's bad. Injustice, whether domestically or internationally, etc., against blacks or against anybody, you should be at the forefront as Muslims, standing up firmly for justice. Now, this verse takes it even to a higher level. As a community who has a mission to deliver, you are held at a higher standard. What is this higher standard? It's you have to be fair and just, even with people you hate, even with people who have transgressed against you before. And remember the people of Mecca, what they have done to believers. I mean, at least Quran reminds us of one incident, which is when they prevented them from visiting Mecca. And the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was made. And صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام. That left a lot of wounds and bruises in the hearts of Muslims. And then, of course, before that, the harassment, the torture, forcing them or pushing them to leave and leave behind everything. The migration was not like somebody booking a ticket and taking a flight. Yeah. The migration was somebody who has left everything they had. They took from them everything, their houses, their businesses, even their saving or wealth, they took everything. We have business people who left Mecca with nothing. So even with those, you still have to be fair. And that's really the highest level you can think of. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا. It was translated as breaking the law, but also it can be just to be unfair. It's not an excuse. Even this is not an excuse. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that this is hard, comes the verse وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. You're going to have to support one another to do this. And support with what? With taqwa. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. And then if all of that is not enough, then إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. As usual, Quran, the incentive and the warning together. So because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that this level is very hard, it's very hard to be fair and just with someone who has harmed you before, and someone who has, and to the point that it really causes you real harm and damage. So what Quran says, help one another to do what is right. This requires help. It requires that you support each other to do it, because I mean, you find your member of the community who is in this case and really finding it so hard to restrain themselves. We just have to support each other, because this is very hard to do. What's right and good Do not help one another towards sin and hostility. Unfortunately, that's a lot of time happens when someone comes to you and complaining about the person and so mad, so angry, and they want to take revenge. Some people, they do exactly the wrong thing. They keep any, what do you call it, pouring oil on the fire or whatever. I mean, it's just making it worse, making that it's so rather than cooling that person down, rather than asking for people. Of course, this does not mean that you accept abuse. Remember, Islam is not a pacifist. It's not like somebody cause you harm. And no, when you are able to push back, you push back. And you should. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْبَغْيُ هُمْ يَنْتَصِرُونَ. People who are inflicted with injustice, they push back. But because you are a member of this community, because you have that message and because you have that mission, try to take the high ground, the moral high ground, which is like, yes, this person harmed you, you were able to push them back to their limits. But after that, or even while doing that, you just have to be fair. Do not help one another towards sin and hostility. Unfortunately, that's happening all the time. There are so many family problems and social problems is because of this. Is because when someone comes to complain to someone else, they encourage sin and hostility. Be mindful of Allah, for his punishment is severe. I mean, you cannot really hope for more than that. Support one another to do the right thing, what is right and good. تعاونوا على البر والتقوى. That's also fundamental, foundational verse. وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. Do not help one another for sin and hostility. Then Allah, knowing that all of this is hard, in addition to supporting one another, واتقوا الله, because this requires taqwa. There is no way this level can be reached without taqwa, and taqwa is mindfulness, all aspect of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love, tawakkul, dependence, gratitude, etc. And then inna Allah shadidul iqab. So if all of that, I give you practical ways to do it, support one another. I remind you of the taqwa, and remember that there was a reminder in the beginning, which is you believe, honor your obligation, and Allah yahkum ma yurid, all of this. And then if all of this was not enough for you to do what needs to be done, the right thing, remember that inna Allah shadidu al-iqab. So encourage you to do the right thing, but also warn you against failing to do, to honor your obligations or to do what needs to be done. I think we're going to stop here. Unless if there are some questions, otherwise we can move on. So you can see how much time we spent on 2 verses. Yes, one of them is a bit long, but not very long. 2 verses. That's the Quran. It's an ocean. You get really overwhelmed with the guidance and inspiration and empowerment.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You mentioned that a Jew who had a claim against somebody in Medina was saved by an ayah of the Quran that was revealed. What is that ayah number? Where?
It's in Surah An-Nisa, Surah 4, and actually verses, not only one. It's a few verses. I'm looking for them. They start from verse 105. And they go to verse 113. Surah 4.
105 to 113. Jazakallah khair.
Even continuation to 114, but mainly to 113. The whole idea is that there was an act of stealing, and then unfortunately was committed by someone from the Muslim community, from a reputable family. And then they decided to take that shield, the ones that was stolen, they conspired, and to throw it in the house of a Jew, and to go to the Prophet to tell him, our person is innocent, and we want you to exonerate him because we found the stolen object in the house of a Jew. I mean, this is coming from believers, and the item is in his house. So everything was against that person, that Jew man. And the Quran was revealed to prevent any injustice against an innocent person. Even while his tribe was really conspiring against Muslim and hostile, but fair justice is justice.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
Salam.
I would like to understand in Surah Abasa, what lesson can we get when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala I don't know, warned the Prophet ﷺ for ignoring the blind man and giving concentration to the Quraysh. So what can we draw?
Goals don't justify the means. الغاية لا تبرر الوسيلة. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was discussing with the prominent leaders of Quraysh, and he was so eager for them to understand his message and to accept it. So he was not really doing something for his own benefit or business or anything. He was really delivering the message of Islam to people who, if they accept Islam, it can make huge difference because they are very powerful and very strong and very prominent leaders. And here comes an average member of the community who was blind and wanted to talk to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not like it or felt that that's a distraction. It's basically almost saying that we can do this later, which makes sense. I mean, on paper it makes sense, and probably if we did not have that surah revealed, any one of us will be saying nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have your leader who is busy with something very important, and not important personal, but important for the religion and the community and the mission, etc. And you're coming now to try to talk to him. That's not the best time. That's our logic. Quran was revealed to say no. Quran was revealed to say that, subhanAllah, and you can see how this accommodating disabled people, how it started from them, because that, if he was probably someone who's not disabled, not blind, maybe it's okay. But that, because this can leave a very hard, it can hurt. It can hurt tremendously because people usually will feel that I was ignored or pushed away because I'm blind. So the language was very strong. So it's, and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted it, of course. Just to set the frame clearly, that a believer who's coming to you, especially who's blind, is more important, regardless of your intention. Yes, you have the best of intention, and you're doing that for the sake of Allah and for the sake of Islam. But even the best intention does not allow you to do what you like or what you want or what you see appropriate. A member of the community, regardless of his status, etc., coming to you as a leader and the prophet is more important to pay attention to, especially as someone who's blind and disabled, more than these people. And Quran is telling Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that it's not even your job to convert them. وما عليك ألا يزكى أما من استغنى فأنت له تصدى وما عليك ألا يزكى. يعني what's gonna happen if they did not accept يعني. وأما من جاءك يسعى وهو يخشى فأنت عنه تلهى. And mentioning الأعمى وما يدريك لعله يزكى. And I have someone who comes to the leader of the prophet, maybe needs an advice, maybe it's urgent, maybe needs urgent help. And you think that's a distraction because you are busy delivering the message for people who are stronger or more prominent, etc. No. So it was really correcting the reference.
Jazakallah khair.
وعليكم السلام.
Jazakallah fil khair, Dr. Suhail. Inshallah, we see you next Sunday at noon, بإذن الله. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.